This is the last video in Module 1, and we're going to ground everything we've discussed into two real events: Stuxnet in 2010 and the Colonial Pipeline attack in 2021. These aren't theoretical, these actually happened, and they had serious consequences. They permanently changed how the industry thinks about OT security. Stuxnet is widely regarded as the first publicly known cyber attack designed to cause physical destruction of industrial equipment. It was malware specifically engineered to target Siemens S7 PLCs that were controlling centrifuges in an Iranian uranium enrichment facility. What made Stuxnet remarkable from a technical standpoint was that the target facility was air-gapped. It was not connected to the internet. The attackers solved that problem with infected USB drives. Someone at some point plugged an infected USB drive into a system inside that facility, and from there, the malware spread through the network until it found the specific PLC configuration it was looking for. Once it found its target, it did something subtle and dangerous. It sent commands to the centrifuges that caused them to operate outside of safe parameters, while simultaneously sending false normal readings back to the monitoring systems. Operators saw nothing wrong. The equipment was physically destroying itself, and the control system was telling everyone everything was fine. It was operational damage disguised as normal operations. The lesson from Stuxnet is that air gaps are not a permanent security solution. Physical media, contractor laptops, and vendor equipment can all bridge an air gap. And when an attacker is inside an OT network, they can cause real physical damage while the control screens show green. Colonial Pipeline is a different kind of case study, and in some ways an even more instructive one for OT security. Colonial operates the largest fuel pipeline system in the United States, carrying gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel to the eastern seaboard. In May 2021, a ransomware group called DarkSide gained access to Colonial's IT network. They encrypted servers and demanded a ransom. Colonial's response was to shut down their pipeline operations as a precaution, not because the OT system itself was compromised, but because of its uncertainty about whether the OT environment had been affected and concerns about billing and monitoring systems. The result was a 6-day shutdown of the pipeline, fuel shortages up and down the East Coast, panic buying, and a $4.4 million ransom payment. Colonial eventually paid. The entry point was a single VPN account with a reused password and no multi-factor authentication. We may talk about VPNs later. That account wasn't even actively in use. It was a legacy account that hadn't been cleaned up. One credential, no second factor, and the consequences cascaded into a national fuel supply disruption. So let's look at some of the key lessons from both cases. First, OT attacks have already happened. This is not a theoretical future threat. Stuxnet was 2010, Colonial was 2021. There have been many more incidents in between that didn't make international headlines. The threat is real and it's current. Second, you don't need a direct OT compromise to halt operations. Colonial is a perfect example. The OT system may have been fine, but an IT compromise created enough uncertainty and disruption that the decision was made to shut down. The business impact was identical to a direct OT attack. Third, air gaps and good intentions are not sufficient. Stuxnet crossed an air gap. Colonial's attack started with a forgotten VPN account. Technical controls that actually work, like network segmentation, multi-factor authentication, asset inventories, credential management, are what matter. And fourth, every engineer and technician working in OT needs to understand the basics of network security, and that's why you're here. This wraps up Module 1. You now have the foundational mental model for what a network is, how data moves, what hardware is involved, what physical media connects it all, and why OT security has become a critical concern. In Module 2, we're going to go deeper into IP addresses. Every device on a network has one. And we're going to understand how they work and how that is essential for everything else in this course. We'll see you in the next module.